So again, the tips I'm giving you are not solely for people that are nonfiction authors or even fiction authors. Short story writers, poets, etc., can make use of these techniques to draw people in and to get them interested in what you're doing. Freddie, one thing that you might do is when you share something with your friends, say on Facebook, one of your poems or something, offer them something exclusive that only they get if they click through to your website or something like that. Or they only if they email you or they join your email newsletter or something like that. And it's an exclusive. It's a Freddie fan exclusive or something like that.
Okay.
Part of the way that you create relationships with people is by offering them exclusives. Make them part of a real fan club and not just, somebody that gets your email newsletter. In fact, you might even think of calling your newsletter the Lori Weiss fan club or something like that, or the Ginger Marks incredibly fantastic fan club, or whatever you want to call it. That's perfectly legitimate kind of thing to do. And again, one of the neat things about Substack for newsletters is that it allows you to have a free version to reach everybody. So you can post episodes that are free to everybody that gets your newsletter. And then you can have an upgraded version of exclusive content that people, if they really want to engage with you and become an incredible fan of you, they support you by subscribing to your paid version. It's sort of like doing, it's sort of an ongoing way of doing, what do you call those fundraising sites? Going blank on their names now. Indiegogo or other ones like that. It's a way to create a relationship with people, offer them something special, other connection with you. And it doesn't always have to be, you'd be surprised what people will pay for. You will be surprised sometimes, some people, my wife is a fan of the Outlander series of novels. She just loves them. And I believe the author, and I'm going blank on her name again, she has incredible number of fans and people hungry to hear from her. She does a lot of that on her website through a blog post, but I wouldn't be surprised if she also had some sort of fan club, and maybe it was exclusive. It could be exclusive in one of two ways. One is the people pay for it to get exclusive access to it. The other way, people could say, I will do these things to help you promote your book if I can be a member of your fan club. So you could give people ideas for how they could share your book and qualify to be a member of your fan club. And the neat thing with Substack, if you have an upgraded paid version of your newsletter, you can give people that upgrade as a freebie. You can simply add them to the list. On my website at bookmarketingbestsellers.com, I'm going to give you a link to it. I have an article. Let's see if I can find it. I forget where I put it, the link. Okay. It was originally called 51 Ways to Help a Book Author You Love. And now no, it didn't copy. Okay, let's try that again. It started off as 36 ways to help a book author you love. And I think it's now up to 51 ways to help a book author you love. You're welcome to share that article with any of your readers and so on, and tell them, if you really love what I do and if you want to help me, read this article and find ways that you can help me. Pick 3 of those And if you do them and show me proof of that, you'll be in my special super fan club. And you'll get exclusive content from me as a super fan and sneak peeks of my upcoming books, or whatever you want to say. And Phil, again, that could be one way that you would start to promote your other books in your series by simply giving away parts of that book to your super fans.
It reminds me a lot of Patreon. Although I know people on Patreon, if you subscribe to their like highest tier, they'll give you like a Q&A like this or like other
Right.
special perks.
And so you could use Patreon, or again Indiegogo, or some of the other fundraising sites to create your super fan site or program, and call it the Lori Weiss or Andrea Thompson Super Fan Club, and do it that way. That's certainly something that would be perfectly a good way to use those fundraising sites, is to allow people to, when you do like an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter program, one of the things that they do is they allow you to give away different upgrades depending on how much they donate to your fundraising effort. So, for $10 you get this, for $20 this, for $100 this, for $1,000 this, for $5,000 I'll fly you to my home and you can have a day with me, or something like that. You'd be surprised sometimes what people will actually pay for to get a connection with an author they love. And I'm sure that if the woman who wrote the Outlander series, I can't remember her name, I'm not sure why. Anyway, if she offered a Kickstarter program where if people paid $5,000, they could come and spend a day with her, she'd probably have 10 or 20 people that would pick her up on that. People that have more money than sense. I don't know. I don't know if I would spend $5,000 to spend a day with anybody. I don't know, maybe I would. Like, for example, if you're really at the point where you want to connect with this one person and they have a program like that on Kickstarter or Indiegogo or Patreon, and they offer a day with them, I might spend it. I know one author, he signed up for Jack Canfield's program simply to be able to connect with Jack and get a foreword by Jack. And so he bought this program, it was like $5,000 or $10,000, simply to get the foreword from Jack. But then he was too shy to ask for it. So he asked me to ask Jack, so I did. And Jack wrote this incredible foreword. It was fantastic, and I loved it. We helped him write it, but then he added on his own personal touch to it. And now, the author has that as his foreword to his book. And, he paid for that connection to some but the card you can only play a few times in your life is asking a friend to do something for another friend. So you play your cards very carefully. But this was one of my clients for the 747 program, so I wanted to help him out. And it gave me a reason, an excuse to connect with Jack in a Zoom call. And we had a wonderful hour-long talk because Jack and I are mutual members of each other's fan clubs. And, so, we love each other. That was a relationship. I met him at Book Expo America. And we've created a relationship from there. And we love each other. I don't think there's any other way to say it. And that's really neat when you have people that make a difference for you, that actually like you and care about you and will actually go out of their way sometimes to do something for you. I had that my wife, Gail, because she's listening to all these Audible books, one of the things that she wanted to do was she read this one book from a publisher friend of mine. They published this novel and she loved it, and she wanted the publisher to recommend other books for her to listen to on Audible. So I contacted Dominique Rakash. He's the publisher at Source Books Trade out of Naperville, Illinois. I arranged a Zoom session with her, and we had a wonderful, again, an hour-long talk. We've been friends for years. And I asked her at the end, I said, look, the reason I actually called is my wife wants some recommendations for other novels she should listen to. And Dominique sent back 4 books titles. 2 of them were her book titles, and 2 were from other publishers. And my wife listened to all of them, and she was going, wow, John, can you do it again? you know, but that all comes from the relationships that you build. And sometimes they take time. It's one of the reasons I really recommend that you get involved whenever possible to go to a live conference once they come back into being. And to go to a live author conference or something like that, to meet authors, publishers, agents, and so on, and create a relationship with them. I've created some incredible relationships just because of the way, going out and speaking at conferences and so on. And I've missed that for the last couple of years, not having any live conferences to go to. Because people just were not, Judith Briles, who's one of my friends out of Denver, she used to organize live conferences several times a year, sometimes 3 or 4 times a year. And she had to stop doing it because everybody was afraid to go. She actually had to cancel a couple of live events because of that, because of COVID. And my wife just asked me yesterday, can you cancel your dental appointment on Thursday? Because I don't want you to go while COVID is still raging. And it's sort of picked up again. And, so I had to cancel my dental appointment. But, I would do that for her. And it wasn't going to be a fun dental appointment anyway. They were going to put on 3 crowns, So I was just as happy to postpone it, But at some point I had to take care of those teeth, and so I had to get it done. But live conferences are an incredible way to create relationships. The one thing I would recommend all of you do at some point is get to know other authors in your area. Actually reach out to them and say, would you like to do a promotion together? I have another friend, Rudy Shore. He's the publisher at, oh boy, Square One Publishing out of New York. And he has a number of books on publishing and writing and so on. And he has a couple other people that he knows that have books like that. And so he's organizing a co-op promotion where I would join in with him and a couple of other authors to promote each other's books as a package and send it out to each other's email list and do other kinds of joint promotions. And I think that's a wonderful idea. I think you should all be doing that. Even if the 5 authors or 10 authors don't have a platform of much, they maybe have a website and maybe they have 100 followers on Facebook. Even people that don't have big followership can be incredible partners, because you never know. They may have 1 follower that falls in love with you and tells 100 people about your book. I mean, I can't tell you how many people bought my book because Jack and Mark of Chicken Soup for the Soul recommended my book and said, hey, just do what John says. There's this wonderful video on my homepage of my bookmarketingbestsellers.com website where Jack is talking about how they cut apart my book and pasted it up on a wall and then took down the ideas as they did them. It took him 2 people 2 days to put all those ideas up on the wall. And then they took them down as they did them, action items. And this is what they did to help make Chicken Soup for the Soul, the original book, a bestseller. Is they actually followed all those different ideas. They did at least 5 new things every day to market their books, which is, again, one of the key tips I've been recommending to people for 30 years. And, Jack and Mark took it to heart. They did all these things, and they've now sold probably 1 billion books. I don't know. I don't know the actual number right now. I know it's over 800,000, but it may be as high as 1 billion. And, incredible. But you have to start off somewhere. You have to reach out to people some way. You have to let people know who you are and what your book is about in some way. You're the first step to creating the word of mouth. Word of mouth sells 80% of all books sold. Somebody tells somebody else, you got to buy this book. And it's still true. I first quoted that statistic 30 years ago, and it's still true. Most books are sold because one person told another to buy the book. I used to work in downtown St. Paul, and it was really interesting over a lunch hour. You'd walk through the skyways in St. Paul, and almost every secretary in that skyway was carrying the same book. They talked to each other. They knew each other, and they would read the books together, and then they sit and talk about it at lunch. And so you'd see these books just being spread like wildfire through the skyways of St. Paul. And this happens in office towers in New York. It happens everywhere that people are sharing. Nowadays, people share it through Pinterest or through Facebook or through LinkedIn or Instagram and so on. I just found this incredible book. I wanted to share it, let other people know about it. When I first saw Jack and Mark for Chicken Soup for the Soul, I got a free signed copy of the book. I bring it back home. My wife reads it. She's bawling as she reads some of the stories. And then she makes me pay money for 10 more copies. So that was one of the most expensive free books I ever got. I actually ended up buying probably 20 or 30 copies over time because my wife wanted to give it away to people. I said, why can't you just recommend they buy it? But, that's what happens with word of mouth. People fall in love with books and they're going to share it with their other people. My wife does it all the time. She just bought her sister a book that she fell in love with for Christmas. She said, I wanted you to have this book because I loved it. And you'll be surprised how many readers fall in love with what you're doing. That really makes a difference for you. And it can really spread like wildfire when you find the right person. And you don't always know who that person is that's going to set your book on fire, and who somehow falls in love with your book and tells more and more people about that book. That's why you have to keep knocking on doors. That's why you have to keep sharing through Facebook and so on. You have to do the things that are going to make a difference. And yet you don't always know what that is. That's why, you try different things. But I do recommend that you focus. Don't do more than about 5, maybe 10 things that you're doing to market your books. Join 1 or 2 social networks and be active on them. Be active on the other social networks. I don't, you never know when somebody on one of those social networks might discover you. But I'm mainly active on Facebook and on Pinterest. And I was just going to check. I bet if I go to Facebook today, I'm going to find all kinds of people wishing me a happy birthday. Let's see if that is true. Yep, there are some people. There's
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, John Kremer. Happy birthday to you.
Well, thank you. That was great. You know, and it happens every year. I get about, I don't know, 500 or 1,000 birthday wishes on Facebook. It takes me hours to respond to them, but I respond to every one because it's a social network and you should do that. You should thank people for wishing you a happy birthday. It takes time. Uh, you know, I'm glad when my birthday's over, but that's all part of what happens when you're working with people and people fall in love with you. Um, People are going to wish you a happy birthday. Surprisingly, I also get some happy birthdays on LinkedIn. I, Facebook doesn't really, I mean, Pinterest really doesn't do that. That's not something people do on Pinterest. But they do it on Facebook. I, 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 I get a number of tweets from people wishing me a happy birthday on Twitter or LinkedIn, but Facebook actually promotes your birthday. And there's a reason they do that, and that's because they want to. Facebook wants more people using Facebook more often because then they can deliver more ads to them. So they want people, going viral with their birthday, and uh, having a lot of people visit just to say happy birthday to you and things like that. So that's all part of it. And I see some of you have already said happy birthday. Thank you, Ginger and Freddie and Laura and so on. And Andrea said, you're such a gem in the book and marketing business. Glad I found you on Facebook. So she discovered me through Facebook. You never know what people are going to discover you. That's why you put your fingers out there some. But you really have to focus on the 5 or 10 things that are really going to produce a return for you. For me, that's definitely publishing a newsletter. 2, doing a podcast, and I'm doing more of those now. Also, being active on Pinterest, because I really find that as a very powerful thing. Ginger says she's been a forever fan, and Dr. Laurie said I discovered 1,001 Ways in 1989. It took her 5 years to find it. I think my first edition was in 84 or 86. I forget which. I've gone through 7 editions now of 1,001 Ways to Market Your Books. And the neat thing is you create a great book and people will discover it and want updates on it, especially for a book like that where you're sharing a lot of tips and so on. I'm getting to the point where I want to do a book that I never have to do a new edition of. New editions are actually harder to write than original books. I don't know if any of you know that, but for me, it's true. When you write a new edition, it actually takes more time than writing the original edition. I wrote the original edition of 1,001 Ways, which was called 101 Ways to Market Your Books. I wrote it in 40 days. Now it takes me as much as 6 months to do a new edition. Now the book has gotten bigger over the years. That's why it became 1,001 Ways, because people said I lied when I said 101 Ways. So I called it 1,001 Ways. But that's all part of what you're doing. You have to think about it. Now I have some books I'm doing that I don't have a built-in audience for them. I have a book on prayer that I'm going to be publishing soon. And because I really believe in the power of prayer. So, just for those of you who are listening in here, my nephew Derek has pancreatic cancer, stage 4. And if you could say a prayer for him, I would deeply appreciate it. Pray that he goes through his chemotherapy fine. Pray that he recovers. He's a really healthy guy. He's a marathon runner. So, anyway, that's just a sidelight, and I would certainly appreciate any prayers you have. I really do believe in the power of prayers. Maria asked, do you self-publish? For the most part, I do self-publish. I have done a couple books with other publishers, but I sold a book to John Wiley, And I think about a week after the book was published, my editor, who's your champion in a publisher, who's the person you're supposed to communicate with to try to help promote the book, he decided he wanted to be a forest ranger in Montana. So he moved. And so my book was virtually abandoned. I did learn that I had one sales rep in the Minnesota area who loved the book and sold it into a lot of bookstores there. But boy, I go to the Wiley booth at Book Expo and I'm like nowhere, and no one wants to talk to me, and things like that because I've been essentially abandoned. And so, that happens, and there's nothing much you can do about that when you sell the rights to a publisher. They returned the rights to me eventually because they weren't doing anything with it. But, and I sold one book to Random House, and they returned the rights eventually to me as well. So, those things happen. There's an author that I'm working with right now. She's a novelist. She's the one I read the little ad in the middle of her middle reader book, where she said, "I want a relationship with you, readers. Please email me, connect with me on Facebook," and so on. I love that. I'm going to do that with every one of my books from now on. I'm going to have a plea for attention in the middle of the book. I think it's a great idea. It's a way to create relationships with your readers. And the one thing you should never do is publish a book without some way for your readers to connect with you. Because if you sell on Amazon, Amazon won't share who bought your book. You don't know who bought it. Unless you have some sort of way for people to connect with you within your book and a reason to connect with you within your book, you'll never know who bought your book. You'll never be able to upgrade them to subscribe to your newsletter or your podcast and so on. So always have something in your book that people can go, wow, a free offer, here's a special report. I couldn't get everything into the book. So if you email me, I'll send you these 2 books or something like that. At one time when I was doing the 1001 Ways, the book was getting too big and people were telling me, don't go over 700 pages. I snuck over a little bit, 704 pages. But I actually had to drop 2 chapters on editorial and design of a book, which I believe are crucial to marketing, but I couldn't fit them in the book. So I offered them as free reports. And I should put them back up as freebies. They're still useful reports. So I'll have to do that. Let me see. I'll write a note to myself. And I'll write about them. I'll offer them through my newsletter so you'll know where they are. And I'll probably offer them for a limited time because then I'll probably offer them for sale. Because they're still good content and they're 40 or 50 pages each. So anyway,